Have you ever sat in a meeting, nodding along, while a voice inside whispered, "Any minute now, they'll figure me out"? You replay your last sentence, you scan faces for reactions, and you wonder if that compliment was just politeness. Your chest tightens. Your mind says, "You're a fraud," imposter syndrome. It can creep into the brightest rooms and dim every light. If that feeling has been living under your skin, this is for you. Viktor Frankl, a psychiatrist who survived the concentration camps and spent his life studying meaning, would look at that voice and say, "It is not proof that you are fake. It is a signal that your attention is aimed at the wrong thing, not the task, not the person in front of you, not the life asking something real from you right now. Your attention is turned inward, toward yourself, like a mirror held too close. And when the mirror is right up against your eyes, the world disappears. All you see is flaw." Frankl believed we are not driven most by pleasure or power, but by the will to meaning. We ache to matter. When that will is blocked, when we disconnect from what is genuinely worth doing, we don't just get bored, we get anxious. We feel empty, alien, or like a fraud in our own life. Imposter syndrome, through Frankl's lens, is not a pathology to shame. It's a misdirected compass, pointing toward a quick fix approval instead of the horizon meaning. Think about the last time you felt like an imposter. Chances are you were trying to be enough, smart enough, perfect enough, likable enough. What if your soul wasn't asking for enough, but for true? Not do I look worthy, but is what I'm doing worth something? That shift from worthiness to worth is the quiet revolution Frankl invites you into. He taught a practice called dereflection. It's simple, almost deceptively so. When your attention obsesses about yourself, your voice, your performance, you gently turn it away from you, toward the task or the person in front of you. You stop asking, "How am I doing?" and start asking, "What is needed?" It's a small tilt, but in that tilt, something enormous happens. You stop trying to perform your life, and you start living it. Imagine you walk into a room to present. Your body tenses. That old fear starts. What if they see I'm not good enough? Frankl would say, pivot. Don't ask what they'll think of you. Ask what you can give them in the next 10 minutes. One clear idea, one honest story, one note of usefulness. You're no longer the product, you're the messenger, and the message matters more than the messenger. Here's the part most people miss about imposter syndrome. It thrives on hyperreflection and hyperintention. The harder you strain for control, the shakier you feel. Frankl used paradoxical intention to untie that knot. When insomnia torments you, he suggested, try to stay awake on purpose. When a tremor scares you, exaggerate it slightly. And in performance, when fear says, don't mess up, you might say back, let me try to mess up just a little. The fear loses its edge when you stop fighting it. The paradox releases the pressure. You can use a gentle version of this with imposter thoughts. Before a difficult call, when the voice says, don't sound stupid, reply, okay, I'll allow myself one clumsy sentence, and I'll deliver something useful anyway. Suddenly, the goal is not perfection, it's contribution. The fear loosens. The task returns. Frankl also spoke about 3 pathways to meaning. First, by creating what you contribute. Second, by experiencing love, beauty, truth, the presence of another human being. And third, by attitude, how you bear what can't be changed. Imposter syndrome tries to define you by what you prove. Frankl redefines you by what you give, what you encounter with reverence, and the stand you take when life presses you. Let's make this concrete. Suppose you're a new manager. You're terrified your team will realize you've never led before. Ask the question Frankl asked his patients. What is life asking of me at this moment? Not what do I fear, not what do I crave, but what is being asked. The answer might be smaller than your panic suggests. Maybe today, life asks for one clear priority shared with clarity. One honest check-in with a teammate, one boundary kept. That's it. And if that's fulfilled, you carried your responsibility well. Nothing fraudulent about it. Or imagine you're a student, walking into a lab where everyone seems brilliant. Your stomach churns. What is being asked? Show up with curiosity. Ask one thoughtful question. Spend an extra hour learning what you don't yet know. The work becomes your anchor, not the gaze of others. Now let's look at the deeper wound. Why does praise feel fake when you have imposter syndrome? Because praise often lands on your image, not your mission. Compliments hit the mask, and the mask can't absorb them. Try this instead. Translate praise into purpose. If someone says, "Great job on the report," you quietly convert it into, "That clarity helped the team decide faster." Purpose received, mission strengthened. You're less impressed with yourself and more connected to the service. There's another reason imposter syndrome lingers: perfectionism. You've drawn a circle called acceptable, and almost nothing fits inside. Frankl would ask you to widen the circle by accepting your real humanity. Not to lower the bar of effort, but to change the bar from flawless to faithful. Faithful to what matters today, here, with this person, on this task. A faithful life, brick by brick, dissolves the feeling of fraud because you are not pretending to be superhuman. You are practicing being human on purpose. Try this tiny exercise this week. Before you begin any meaningful task, write one sentence. Today, I'm responsible for. Be specific. Today, I'm responsible for making this client feel understood, for moving this project one step forward, for protecting my energy so I don't burn out. When doubt strikes, return to the sentence. Responsibility is a compass. It orients your energy outward, toward meaning. You might be thinking, that's nice in theory, but what about when I actually fail? What about when I really don't know enough? Frankl would smile gently and say, "Good, you are alive. Life is not asking you to be all-knowing, it is asking you to be answerable." He called this tragic optimism, the refusal to let tragedy have the last word. Even when you fall short, you are still free to choose an attitude, to learn, to apologize, to endure, to make the next moment better. Failure, through this lens, is not evidence you are a fraud. It's evidence you are engaged in something that matters enough to risk imperfection. Let's talk about comparison. You scroll your feed. Everyone looks polished, fluent, permanent. You zoom into the surface of other people's lives and judge your insides against their outsides. Frankl would pull you back and say, your meaning is not interchangeable with anyone else's. Responsibility makes you unique. No one else has your exact duties today, your sick parent to call, your kid's anxious question to answer, your teammate's email waiting for clarity. When you attend to what is yours, the noise softens. There is a phrase of Frankl's I want you to keep, self-transcendence. It sounds lofty, it's not. It means we find ourselves by going beyond ourselves, toward a person, toward a person, toward a purpose. The more we stare at the mirror, the more distorted we feel. The more we turn toward meaning, the more the mirror finds its proper place, a simple tool rather than a tyrant. Ask someone who's been in flow at work, present with a child, or supporting a friend through grief. In those moments, the fraud voice goes silent. Not because you became perfect, but because you forgot to measure yourself. If you are battling imposter thoughts right now, here's a small daily ritual. In the morning, ask, "What is life asking of me today?" Write 3 lines. At midday, ask, "Where did I choose meaning over impressing?" Note 1 moment. At night, ask, "Where did I get stuck in myself?" No shame, just notice. Then write 1 tiny pivot for tomorrow. Ask more. Prepare earlier. Rest sooner. Listen longer. This is dereflection in practice. Your days stop orbiting your self-image and start orbiting your mission. Sometimes imposter syndrome hides behind humor. You demolish yourself before anyone else can. You call yourself the dumb one, the lucky accident, the mistake that made it in. Frankl would be gentle but firm. Words are doors. Walk through the wrong ones and rooms get darker. Try this replacement. I'm responsible to learn. I'm allowed to be new. I'm here to contribute. Let your language become a bridge to meaning, not a pit you fall into. Here's another tool from Frankl's approach for those spiking moments of panic. Create a rescue sentence you can whisper under your breath. I am here to serve this moment. Or, one honest step, then the next. Or, I am not the judge, I am the worker. These phrases are not magic, but they are doors. They help you step out of the courtroom in your head and into the workshop of your life. Think about a time when you received strong criticism. It stung so much you could feel it in your teeth. What did your mind do? If it said, "You shouldn't even be here," Frankl would invite a different movement. Ask, what part of this can make the work truer? Can I attend to that and let the rest pass? That's not denial. That's discernment. Responsibility requires the courage to keep what helps and drop what only harms. You might also feel like a fraud in love and friendships, family, or partnership. You fear if they knew the real you, they would walk away. Frankl's second pathway to meaning, experiencing values, speaks here. Let yourself meet another person as they are, without performance or defense. Look at them as a subject, not an object. Offer attention as a gift. Love is not a stage test. It's a shared gaze toward truth. When you practice this, the pressure to be impressive melts. The aim becomes to be present. And what about the parts of you that truly need growth? Frankl would never flatter you or minimize reality. He would remind you that meaning is revealed most clearly when we step into the gap between who we are and who we could be, and take responsibility for the next faithful step. You don't have to fake competence. You can build it brick by brick. 1 tutorial, 1 mentor conversation, 1 hour of practice. When the work becomes the point, the self becomes steadier. Quick mid-video check-in. What's the exact moment your imposter voice gets loud? First day on a project, after praise, or right before you hit send? Tell me in the comments so I can tailor the next episode to your real pressure points. And if this helped you breathe a little, consider subscribing so this place can keep being your quiet corner for meaning and strength. Back to it. I want to give you a simple framework you can carry into any room. Mission, person, task. Before you walk in, define your mission in 1 line. I'm here to clarify, to listen, to decide, to encourage, to challenge. Then name 1 person you're responsible to serve, not the vague audience, but someone specific. Finally, define the next concrete task. Ask 2 questions. Share a draft. Propose a plan. Mission keeps you anchored to why. Person brings your attention to who. Task focuses you on what. The fog in your head clears when your heart, your eyes, and your hands are pointed in the same direction. Now, The fear of exposure, the nightmare that someone will say out loud what you fear in private. Frankl would ask, if that moment came, who would you become right after? Not in fantasy, in reality. You could say, you're right, I missed that. I'm learning. Here's how I'll fix it. Imagine the frame of your life widening beyond the moment. One sentence of integrity can turn a humiliation into a hinge. Your life swings forward instead of shutting down. There's a freedom in owning what you don't know. In logotherapy, Frankl saw again and again that people find strength not by asserting power, but by accepting responsibility. When you say, I don't know yet, but I will find out, you are not shrinking. You are stepping into your true role. You become reliable, not because you're perfect, but because you're honest and you keep moving. If your imposter syndrome is tied to a personal history, maybe you were praised only when you excelled, or mocked when you tried. Know this: Frankl did not believe your past imprisons your future. He believed in the last of human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances. That freedom is not loud, it's quiet and stubborn. You can choose to treat today's work as sacred, even if no one claps. You can choose to show kindness to yourself while you grow. You can choose to place the weight of your attention on meaning, not on performance. Let's visit paradoxical intention one more time with a tender example. You're about to have a tough conversation. You fear you'll ramble and make it worse. Try this. I permit myself to ramble for 1 minute. Then I'll ask one caring question. See what happens. By giving fear a small, safe corner, you free the rest of the room for courage. If you struggle to accept compliments, practice this micro-response. Thank you, that helps me keep going. You're not rejecting praise, and you're not inflating it. You're connecting it to purpose. The compliment becomes fuel for the work, not a spotlight on your identity. When the stakes are high, imposter syndrome loves to whisper absolutes. Always, never, everyone, no one. Frankl would guide you back to particulars. This task, this hour, this person, this step. Ground yourself in the now, not the imagined courtroom of everyone's judgment. Then, when the moment is over, give yourself a meaning audit. Did I aim at the right thing? Did I move it forward, however slightly? If yes, carry that. If no, adjust tomorrow's aim. There's a beautiful, fierce idea in Frankl's work, conscience as a compass. He believed every person has an inner capacity to sense the meaningful choice. It's subtle, it doesn't shout, it calls. It might tell you to speak a hard truth gently, to stay late when it matters, or to go home because your child needs you, to admit error, to resist envy, to create one page, to sleep. When you listen and act, your life feels coherent. Not because outcomes always go your way, but because you recognize the pattern you being you for a reason. You will still have days when the fraud voice cracks open in your chest. That's okay. You will still flinch when someone praises your work, still freeze when a new challenge appears. But now you have a way through, dereflection from self to service, paradoxical intention to relieve pressure, tragic optimism to stand up after falls, and the triangle of mission, person, task to orient your attention. I want you to remember a moment from your past when you forgot to be afraid. It might be small. You explained a concept to a friend and saw their eyes light up. You stood by someone who was grieving and said nothing, but your presence mattered. You fixed something that was broken, even though no one else would notice. In those moments, were you performing, or were you doing what life asked of you? That is, you without the mirror. That is your true strength. At the end of the day, Imposter syndrome is a story about identity. The fake story says, I am what others think. Frankl's story says, I am responsible for what I choose. The fake story says, I must be flawless to belong. Frankl's story says, I belong wherever I take honest responsibility. The fake story says, fear proves I'm not ready. Frankl's story says, fear is a sign that meaning is near. So tonight, when the old voice rises, try this closing practice. Put a hand on your chest. Inhale slowly, exhale longer. Whisper, I am here to serve this moment. Then ask the quiet question, what is life asking of me next? Maybe it's rest. Maybe it's one email. Maybe it's an apology. Maybe it's courage. Whatever you hear, start there. Step into it like a craftsman walking back into the workshop. One tool, one board, one nail, no audience, just the work that matters. And when you wake tomorrow, if the fraught voice greets you with a smirk, greet it back with a smile. Say, you can ride along, but you don't get to steer. My attention is spoken for. My meaning is spoken for. Today I will do what is asked of me faithfully, imperfectly, fully. Then I'll show up again. Because this is the quiet truth Viktor Frankl leaves in your hands. You do not need to be impressive to be indispensable. You need to be responsible to what matters. When you live that way, the imposter has nothing left to say.